Hey there folks, Zane from the Infinite Jukebox here with another quick album review, and today I wanted to talk about the new Job for a Cowboy record, Moon Healer. How Job for a Cowboy survived the MySpace era of metal is honestly anybody's guess, and those guesses are all probably equally incorrect because I don't think anyone really has an answer as to why. But nonetheless, they did. I mean, they spent the 2000s becoming one of the premier deathcore acts, and they spent the 2010s becoming not a deathcore act. They became a more technical and tech death forward band, as a lot of their peers, like After the Burial and Suicide Silence, largely became less discussed within metalhead circles, thus allowing Job for a Cowboy to honestly become one of the more notable technical death metal bands to come out of the 2000s, even if that sound didn't really become relevant to them until the following decade. After taking a 9-year hiatus, they finally returned in 2023 to release some new singles for an upcoming record, and that record ended up coming out the following year. That album is called Moon Healer, and that following year was this year. Unless you're not watching this in 2024, then I guess it came out in 2024. I don't know, you might be watching this in 2055, which if you are, what are you doing? Don't you have to like find water that doesn't have lead in it or something? Moon Healer, a sequel to 2014's Sun Eater, of course, manages to show off a lot of the technical ability of the band via some extremely complex performances, while also delivering some of the heaviest tracks that they've put out to date, all the while still unfortunately succumbing to a lot of the same flaws that have kind of been plaguing them since their deathcore days, honestly. But first of all, let me talk about the good things here. Most of all, bassist Nick Shangelis throughout this album is an absolute supernova. His heavy, but still often very funky and deeply rhythmic bass lines throughout tracks like The Agony Seeping Storm and Beyond the Chemical Doorway add this certain degree of punch to the record that it desperately needs and in turn does receive, thus allowing this album to feel significantly more energetic, significantly more powerful, and really him and his performance work, they just add a certain degree of density to this album that it would be lacking with probably any other bassist, honestly. So kudos to him for putting out one of the most impressive bass performances I've heard in metal as a genre for, I don't know, the last few months. Definitely a guy to watch out for in any regard. I'm not biased because I'm a bassist, shut up. The guitar work here also acts as a nice display of technical ability as well. That's especially thanks to tracks like The Sun Gave Me Ashes, So I Sought Out the Moon, which kind of verge on the avant-garde compositionally, and I'm certainly not against that. It makes for a record that's definitely more engaging and intriguing upon first listen, let alone multiple repeated listens. But with all of that in mind, beyond the actual compositions here, Job for a Cowboy do kind of run into a few problems that hold this album back from genuine greatness to me. I would say that the first and most prominent comes in the form of frontman Johnny Davey. I mean, he's certainly not a bad vocalist at all. He's honestly really great from an objective perspective, talented guy. I just can't help but feel that a lot of his higher-pitched screams and growls do get pretty old pretty fast, especially when I would argue that he doesn't really have a tone, a degree of brutality, or a certain delivery style that makes him stand out from a lot of different male vocalists within the realm of brutal death metal and heavier metal in general. And again, that's not to say the guy's a bad vocalist. I just can't help but feel that with a more unique delivery style, or maybe just a generally heavier or more consistently guttural style, this record's vocal performances would just be a bit more memorable. And I think that that last part about guttural vocals range is true because, I mean, really, a lot of the deeper moments that he gets into here vocally, I think are some of the better performances that he's delivered throughout Job for a Cowboy's career. I also will say I do think that while this album is a great showcase of the band's instrumental abilities, I don't know if I'd necessarily say it's an amazing showcase of their compositional abilities. I mean, these songs are well put together, there's no question about that, and soloing is done tastefully. It's not a super self-indulgent or masturbatory record by any means, but I also can't really say I walk away remembering a ton from it even after multiple listens. Obviously, I can recollect the general sound of the album, and I can say firmly that I do enjoy this record. I just can't really say there's too many passages that stand out to me in terms of actual solos, in terms of structure, any really bombastic moments or anything like that. And you know, honestly, that may very well be the way that Job for a Cowboy intended it, and I totally respect that artistically if that's the case. I just kind of wish that I walked away with more from this record besides the fact that I just thought it was solid. Nonetheless, Moon Healer, despite some of the qualms that I do admittedly have with it, feels like a nice return for Job for a Cowboy, and generally a nice expression of heaviness from a band with a shelf life that has been really multiple decades longer than I think anybody would have expected 15 years ago. I'm going to give this record 3 stars out of 5. And with that being said, that is the end of this quick album review. I've been Zane from the Infinite Jukebox. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.